Hello, and welcome to Concordia Presents the Walrus Talks Cultural Futures. I'm Jennifer Hollett. I'm the Executive Director of the Walrus, and I'm excited to be your host this evening. We're thrilled to be back here in Ottawa at the National Gallery of Canada and streaming live online at thewalrus.ca. A big hello and welcome to the over 400 households who have registered to join us this evening online. We encourage you, whether you're in the room or tuning in from home or mobile, to share this conversation on social media. So here are the deets. You can tag us at The Walrus, and our hashtag is #WalrusTalks. A hashtag is a great way to connect the two rooms. I'd also like to acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional unceded Anishinaabe Algonquin territory in Canada's capital city. Ottawa is home today to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We're honored to carry on a tradition of storytelling, and we encourage you to take a moment to reflect on the land wherever you are joining us from today, in this room or online. A bit about the Walrus. The Walrus started as an optimistic project over 2 decades ago to foster conversations across the country. We recognize that these conversations are often complex and oh so necessary, so they take place in many forms at the Walrus, online at thewalrus.ca, in print on newsstands, or by subscribing to the Walrus. You can listen to our podcasts, you can be a part of events like this one, and we're especially optimistic lately as the Walrus has received 4 nominations at the Digital Publishing Awards, and 2 of our long-form articles, both uncovering predatory sexual misconduct, one about a megachurch and the other about the St. John's Police Department, have also been nominated for awards. This work is powered by our donors, our supporters, and our partners. So thank you all for being here this evening, and to Concordia University for partnering with us on this and many other events. To tell us more, please welcome to the stage Graham Carr, President and Vice Chancellor at Concordia University and a good friend of the Walrus.
Thanks, Jen. One of my, you're not supposed to say this, mais une de mes diplômés préférés de l'Université Concordia. Alors, merci. C'est vrai, moi je suis vraiment content d'être ici à Ottawa. As you probably realize, things are a little mouvementé on university campuses in North America right now, so it feels really good to be at the National Arts Gallery this evening with all of you. Thank you for coming out, and j'aimerais souhaiter tout particulièrement la bienvenue à tous les diplômés de l'Université Concordia qui sont ici en présence ou qui se joignent à nous en ligne ce soir. I'm just going to take a couple of moments to try to highlight a few connections between what's going on at Concordia and this evening's event. This has been a big year for Concordia University's Faculty of Fine Arts, and you're going to hear from our Dean, Annie Gérin, in a few moments. But one of the things that made it a big year was that one of our researchers in design and computational arts, an Indigenous researcher named Jason Lewis, won the largest individual research grant the university has ever received from the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council for a project on Indigenous cultures and AI, which was a project merging the work and knowledge of Indigenous communities with that of scholars. And unfortunately, the timing just didn't work out to include Jason this evening, so maybe something for the future. I also want to just take a moment to talk about some of the successes of our graduates, in particular Vincent René Lortie, a recent grad from Concordia, whose debut short film, Invincible, was actually nominated for an Oscar. He didn't win, but it's not bad advertising for the cinema program at Concordia that somebody who's a recent graduate can be nominated. And it's a reminder, of course, that What students go on to do is inevitably the best measure of what a university contributes to society. And in that context, I have to just also highlight the fact that for the second time in the last 3 years, one of the Rhodes Scholars from Quebec is from Concordia, a student named Bogdan Lichtensenko, who was a Ukrainian immigrant to Concordia, who actually grew up in the Ottawa region. And speaking of grads, Concordia has great support here in Ottawa, and especially in the arts and cultural scene in Ottawa. And of course, one of our great grads is our host, literally here tonight. We're in the house of Jean-François Bélisle, from whom you will hear more later on. So Jean-François, merci pour l'accueil. A two-time graduate of Concordia and another person of whom we're immensely proud. And in case you hadn't made the connection, if you were walking to the gallery this evening and looking at the mural on the south-facing wall, that mural is by a Concordia faculty member, Deanna Bowen, and that's the mural commemorating the history of Black Canadians after Cook. So I feel really at home here this evening. And in a moment, you're going to hear from 7 phenomenal speakers, 2 of whom are currently at Concordia. Bart Simon, who is the founding director of the Milieux Institute for Art, Culture, and Technology. And as I mentioned, Annie Gérin, an art historian who we're fortunate enough to have as the Dean of the Faculty of Fine Arts at Concordia as well. I think you're in for a great evening. Super pleased to be part of it, and thank you once more for coming. Back to you, Jean.
Thank you, Graham, and a big thank you to Concordia. I did my undergraduate degree in journalism and communications there back in the 90s, and so much of who I am as a journalist, as an artist, and as someone who really discovered technology formally at Concordia, it's who I am today, so it's so exciting to be learning more about AI in partnership with Concordia tonight. Artificial intelligence is slowly but surely being adopted by corporations to do everything from helping to save time, money, and even lives. But how does AI impact art? How does it impact our cultural futures? How are Canadian artists and cultural institutions making use of AI? Is it a tool, a threat, a collaborator? All that and more. Tonight we have 7 speakers, 7 minutes each, and they will be exploring how artificial intelligence is impacting Canadian arts, culture, and society. Coming up, you'll be hearing from Valentine Goddard, founder and executive director, AI Impact Alliance, member advisory council on AI of Canada. Jean-François Bélisle, director and CEO, National Gallery of Canada. Guler, AI educator, filmmaker, and former journalist. I'd argue once you're always a journalist, like kind of once you're trained and worked as a journalist, you're always a journalist. That's how I feel. Annie Gérin, Dean, Faculty of Fine Arts, Concordia University. Zainab, Muse, filmmaker, author, educator, and founder and producer, Creatorland, Inc. Bardia, Sinaee, poet and editor, and Bart Simon, director, Milieux Institute for Arts, Culture, and Technology at Concordia University. Thank you all for joining us. We look forward to hearing your talks.
What a nice big room. Good evening, everybody. My name is Valentine Goddard, and I'm the founder and executive director of AI Impact Alliance, a nonprofit founded in 2017 with the goal to study the different implications of AI through the arts and position the arts in the seat of AI governance. The conversation I have tonight is 6 minutes of bad news and 1 minute of good news, so bear with me. I'm also going to maybe overall context is who's going to get the biggest piece of the AI pie. or who will get peace out of AI. Generative AI is projected to add up to 4.4 trillion in value to global economy each year. However, the International Monetary Fund warns that in advanced economies, about 60% of jobs may be impacted by generative AI, and outcomes will include increases of income inequality. The International Labour Organization warns that left on its own, a digital economy would see women as the biggest losers. How many women do we have in the room? You can put your hands up. Okay, thank you. That's us. Okay. Or your sister, wife, mother, daughter. So I want to talk very briefly about a patchwork of information that we're starting to get through different reports and research. And one of them is the spike of violence against women, racialized women, and otherwise marginalized women and non-binary persons in digital spaces where we are likely to be promoting our cultural creations, thought, leadership, and so on, which affects our health and potentially our revenues. Many say that AI simply reflects bias in society, but actually generative AI makes gender and racial discrimination worse. That's based on a very recent publication by Bloomberg in January. Maybe for some of these reasons, there's a growing polarization regarding AI art. As the rush to adopt AI in creative industries contrasts with the fear of a large number of arts and cultural professionals and workers. As AI integrates into tools of visual stories, movies, new media, the underrepresentation of women in AI will, without proactive action, translate into a gendered cultural erosion. And cultural erosion equates to erosion of democracy. Art is a living institution of democratic societies, and because the quality of democracy is determined by how much we can participate in these institutions, safeguarding the economic rights of all arts and cultural content creators is a matter of cultural security. I took a deep dive into these questions while creating the Algorithmic Frontiers exhibit that you're invited to come and see during the, at the end of the show during the reception. And during the creation of those 12 art pieces, I was confronted with sexualized, objectifying content where I would input my own artwork, and the variations that I would receive in return were very unpleasant and sometimes even violent. I would input watercolors of beautiful Black women, and they would come out paler and paler, and if I added the word leader, they would become white men with blue eyes. If I put drawings of young girls, children, they would come out with one variation, no pants, boobs. The sexualization of young girls in those variations is shocking and unpleasant. I did manage to make the 12 pieces pleasant, so I did create an exhibit in which you won't feel that violation. However, a lot of the making of videos do explain that process, so if you're curious about that, I invite you to come and have a look at it. Am I already at 7 minutes? Holy smokes. That was not even my... Okay, I'm going to talk about the bad news now. Okay, artists are now being used as ammunition in an aggressive generative AI market, which specifically in the military domain was estimated at $9.2 billion in 2023, expected to reach $38 billion by 2028. The arms race is causing increased global spending by developed countries to create legal autonomous weapon systems. I'm skipping, because I'm sure you're wondering right now, what does military AI and AI art research creation have to do with each other? So I'm going to give you one example, very concrete example, publication that was overtly explicit about why it was using caricatures to improve AI's ability to distinguish a human target with different facial features. The publication was just open about it. Now, that's not just in research and publications. There's a system called Lavender that is a target identification system currently used by the military in Gaza. And the excerpt, allow me to read a short excerpt from Radio-Canada. The Israeli army identified tens of thousands of Gazan suspects using an AI targeting system with the human verification based on a permissive casualty policy. Officers are not required to independently review AI system assessments of those lists in order to save time and enable mass identification of human targets. Military leadership reportedly approved this 2 weeks into the war. There is now 25,000 estimated women and children who've died in Gaza since last October. User agreements. Who has used OpenAI in the room? Everybody's tried ChatGPT, DALL-E? Okay. OpenAI recently changed its policies to allow the use for military purposes. So we have to keep an eye on those user agreements. It's essential. My good news is coming. So we've talked about artists' economic rights, gendered rights. I'm thrilled to announce tonight that with the support of the Canada Council for the Arts, I will be launching a resource cluster on art, AI, law, and society. We will develop a platform aimed at seizing the opportunities that AI and generative AI in the arts and culture sector present while addressing its legal and economic implications. The goal is to offer foresight and respond to the imminent challenges presented by AI, inform AI policies and regulations independently from the tech sector's lobby, and promote the important role of the arts sector in democracy and cultural security. Now I'm at 4 minutes. I'm going down. How long I've been talking now. So the other important element is we'll be adopting a gender-sensitive intersectional perspective to counterbalance technological innovation and social justice. We will be serving as a place of research and creation so artists can do and learn through paid residencies, workshops, and an annual conference. I hope you can join me either during the reception to view the Algorithmic Frontiers exhibit, take it home with you. You can view it, debate it, breathe, start over again. It's quite rich in material. And if in the room you're interested in supporting the resource cluster, becoming a member, or sponsoring one of the workshops and the residencies, please keep in touch with me. Thank you very much.
Hi, Jean-François Bélisle, Director and CEO of the National Gallery. I'm a host, but I'm a guest in my house, which is really fun. Really excited to do this. And I wanna tell you guys a story. I've been looking at AI for a long, long time and looking at visual arts that influence or work with AI, asking myself the question, will AI kill visual arts or not? And I'll tell you the story and we can decide after. Back in 2019, I co-curated an astonishing art project in the Joliette Art Museum where I was before, that ended up creating what was thought to be at the time, or what was known at the time as the world's first sculpture made by artificial intelligence. And building that project raised a number of really interesting issues that I'll talk about. It began when I met a British artist by the name of Matt Chivers at the Venice Biennale in 2016. And he is an artist sculpture artist that always interacts at the mixture of science world and art world. Had done projects with Oxford University, with a number of projects in the States, throughout Europe and Africa. And I had been looking for someone that wanted to tackle AI, and I thought this is the person. Of course, sculpture is heavy. Didn't want to ship it from England, so convinced him to do something in Canada. So the project came together in 2017. It happened right when the Montreal Declaration of Responsible AI was being discussed. And what we tried to do, what he wanted to do, is to try to create the first AI that was capable of understanding touch, that was capable of understanding the way we interact with the world, so 3D space and physical contact. And to do that, we turned to clay. And I'll skip a whole bunch of steps of this project that took many years to put together. But basically, we approached Concordia, got 200 students together, or no less than 30 students to go and collect 200 pounds of clay from a riverbed, so natural clay, untouched by man. And then we used that to create the data set to train the AI. So we then partnered with C2 Montreal and asked hundreds, thousands of people to just take a lump of clay and squeeze it in their hand. So the simplest of gestures. And then we scanned all of these lumps, and we used that as a data set to try to teach an AI how to manipulate clay. At the time, we were informed our partner to make the AI possible was Element AI. And the first thing they told us is, well, there's no AI that exists that understands 3D space, so we need to invent it. About 100 programmers worked on it for close to a year. It wasn't going anywhere, but in the end, it succeeded. After a year of trying, it sort of did the basic trigonometry of 3D spaces, and then we asked it, well, now squish some clay yourself. And it looked horrible to start with, but it worked. Ultimately, to varying degrees, so the artist came back in to select a 3D rendering that he thought worked somewhat with what the human gesture was like. And then we decided to produce that sculpture. But of course, we had to not go, Matt's idea was that everything up to this point was carbon-based, was man-based. So how do we produce a sculpture that is not part of the carbon world? So we traveled way up north to Charlevoix, collected 14 tons of impactite, so a meteorite that fell on Earth hundreds of thousands of years ago, and trucked it back to Montreal. And then he didn't want to touch it himself because he thought then it'll be carbon influenced. So we had to find a 7-axis milling machine robot that was in Lac Mégantic to produce the sculpture out of this impactite. The end result was what looked like a lump of clay, but it was in this really dark stone. The same height as a normal human being, so about 1.80 meters tall by 2 meters wide. And we showed it in Juliette with the data set, with 1,500 tiny little lumps of clays that had been scanned to produce the big work. And then around the room, there were these graphite drawings that Matt did, always a pair of birds. The left drawing he drew with his right hand, the right drawing he drew with his left hand, so playing on both hemispheres of the brain. And they were always migratory birds that live in Canada, as a lot of Canadians do, split their time between Montreal and Florida or Montreal and Mexico. And so it was talking about the voyage of like, we're migrating as a species, we're leaving on this migration. Are we going to come back or are we not going to come back? These birds are also often tattooed on sailors' back before they go on their first maiden voyage. And then in the second room of the exhibition, he produced a video, this really stunning video of a lighthouse in Charlevoix at sunrise, slowly going around in a very poetic, very beautiful manner, and a text being read over it. And the text is sort of hard to decipher at first, but about a minute in, you realize that it's a man talking, and the man lives in the lighthouse, and it's sometimes in the future. We don't know how far off. And the man doesn't do anything. He's there with his partner, and it's after the creation of what he called One, which was an overpowering AI that basically took over the world and resolved everything. No more food problems, no more health problems, no more money problems for anyone. Everything was automated, and humans didn't have anything to do but sit around and play with clay. And it's a bit of a poetic gesture. He's not reading the future at all, but he was thinking, well, if AI takes care of everything, what do we have left except touch and except the materiality of our lives, which was very present in the room before. It was an amazing project. Took a year and many years to put together, tons and tons of money and partnerships to create. But it was amazing to see how the public responded. And I will always remember, I think the second day into the show, I took this group of accountants from a local shop down the street and they came in, they thought, oh, this is beautiful, what is it? And then you tell the whole story. And at the end, they all they had graduated from their university program 2 years ago, and they thought, well, why do we study accounting? Like, what are we going to do? And so it raised a lot of questions. And I think ultimately what this project did is what all great art does. is initiate new thoughts, new discussions, and asks new questions. And within the project, AI was a tool. AI would have never produced any of this stuff without an artist being there, shepherding it along, and making all the decisions that mattered. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Guler, and I am a documentary filmmaker, AI educator, and former journalist. I work in almost every part of journalism, starting as a reporter, then moving on to photojournalism, writing columns, and focusing on using AI in filmmaking. Everything I'm sharing today is based on my own experience, and I welcome feedback. This is a new area for all of us, and there are no definite answers. So today, I'm going to talk about how AI impact journalism and newsrooms. Let's start by painting a picture. You are a journalist in the middle of chaos. Your job is to find the important true stories among all the noise. Now think about AI. It's like a super tool, a kind of program that helps you make stories with great detail. Do you remember the dial-up internet or cellular computers? We have come a long way since then. Today's AI is a massive leap forward, comparable to transitioning from horse carriages to spacecrafts. ChatGPT, for example, is not just any program. It's like a wise advisor brimming with knowledge, ready to assist you in finding definitely what you need for your work. Moving into the newsroom, AI tools like Llama, Bing, ChatGPT are becoming integral. They support journalists in gathering information, fact-checking, and writing drafts. While these tools are invaluable, it's vital to keep an eye. We need to make sure the accuracy of AI-generated information to keep our stories credible and trustworthy. Let's look at some examples. Reuters uses AI called Links Insight, which looks for trends and suggests story ideas. Bloomberg uses Cyborg, an AI that quickly understands complex financial reports, a job that will take people much longer. These tools change how news is made, but they still need people to make sure everything is right and useful. Artificial intelligence doesn't just analyze things quickly. It also helps make stories more personal and relevant. For example, EchoBox software helps publishers choose which stories to share based on what's popular and what people like. AI-made newsletters make it seem like each story is chosen just for you. But even though artificial intelligence can do repetitive tasks, it's up to us journalists to be true creators and editors. We have to make sure our stories are real and come from the heart. Attention, please. There are lots of stories about AI and its imagination. The impact of AI is reshaping visual journalism as well. The Washington Post leveraged AI named Heliograph to craft distinctive multimedia narratives during the 2016 Rio Olympics, adding a new dimension to the coverage. Additionally, tools like Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, Leonardo AI simplify all pre-production process from studio design, decorations, camera angles to lighting settings. AI also quickly creates storyboards for TV shows and visualizing scenes from any period or dramas. Sorry about that. And there is more than just Runaway. We have Pika Labs and Luma AI, which expand expand what we can do. They are the Rumi to your Shakespeare, the Merlin to your Tolkien, guiding you through the enchanted forest of digital storytelling. Every AI is making different sounds too. With tools like Suno, it's simpler to make music or soundtracks for your news. But we must remember that these tools cannot replace human creativity and judgment. Every TV station, university, and film company should have an AI team, not to take over creativity, but to make it better. AI is not the antagonist in our story. It's a character that makes our stories more interesting. So imagine a future where AI is your reliable partner finding the truth. But this partnership means we have to be careful and active, making sure our stories not only inform, but also encourage. Finally, AI is already here, not just coming in the future. It's all about how we use it. As journalists and storytellers, we hold the pens and mics, but AI is a tool, software, or assistant, whatever you say, and help us bring many voices and ideas to life, creating stories that touch people deeply. Remember, AI embodies our collective wisdom and knowledge. It's a tool that, when used healthy, has the power to enlighten and transform. Thank you very much.
Bonsoir, good evening. I'm Annie Gérin, Dean of the Faculty of Fine Arts at Concordia. In 2009, I attended a week-long seminar in Spain on the study of humor. The attendees were a strange collection of academics, many of them neurobiologists and computer scientists, all working to solve the problem of what makes us laugh. As you might imagine, and to my disappointment, there was really nothing funny about that meeting. Scholarly work on the science of humor is pretty serious business. But I knew that. I knew that already from my own academic work on the evolution of humor in Soviet art and cultural industries, another seemingly unfunny topic. Specifically, I studied the role of satire under Lenin and Stalin, a topic that unexpectedly broadened my understanding of the role of culture and how it intersects with politics, the economy, and social revolution. What I learned from my research is that humor is about problem solving. It is about the human psyche navigating the unforeseen. When our expectations are challenged by something new or incongruous, our brains feel threatened. To resolve this, we enact a sequence of quick thinking and creative sense-making. And this is when laughter happens. It is a release of tension when the threat abruptly turns into cognitive play. Humor is also about connecting with others, while we collectively make light of hardship, senselessness, or rapidly changing realities that defy our expectations. In that sense, humor is about resilience and community. But how does this all extend to AI and our cultural futures? And what can it all mean for the future of arts education, a topic that preoccupies me as I lead a faculty of fine arts? Well, we train our students in creative thinking and problem solving, skills crucial in the knowledge economy, just as they are for developing art practices and successful humor. And these skills, I'm finding out, are also necessary for academic leaders as institutions are now navigating unforeseen turns and challenges. Historically, the fine arts in higher education have worked in isolation, not just from broader university contexts, but often in isolation from community and industry. The answer to evolving fine arts education, to our cultural futures, is in extending ourselves to the unexpected, saying yes to partnerships and to unusual collaborations, but not just for financial assistance. We need to get out more so that our students can face real-world challenges in all their unexpected complexities and be exposed to practices and technologies like AI that the cultural and private sectors are often quicker to adopt than universities. I have made this exploration of possibilities central to how we work at Concordia. And each time I do this, connecting my faculty and students to outside partners, I find myself immersed in the unexpected, in problem solving, and in creating entirely new things. Thanks to these partners, our students test the aesthetic potential of drone cinematography. They create plays with neurodivergent children, collaborate with engineers on immersive environments and intelligent fabrics, and use the city as a living lab for rethinking public engagement. These opportunities have an impact and are transformative for our partners, communities, and for our students. And yes, there is AI, with its share of unexpected opportunities, risky in terms of intellectual property and ethics, exciting in the hopes of new discovery. It offers problem-solving capabilities that have deep implications for how we teach, grow, and encourage the unique voice of creators. I'm seeing it cropping up more and more in the work of all of our students, filmmakers, musicians, scenographers, dancers, sculptors, and so on. So, will we cede teaching to technology? Will AI make artworks that are better than those of human artists? Will the new tools push us out, or will they push us further creatively? We should not think of AI as a threat, but rather as an opportunity for cognitive play, for sense-making, for unexpected possibilities. In fact, the answer for the arts are more human in scale than technological. I say this because I know for sure that the role of fine arts education is not simply to teach students how to write good prompts for AI engines. Students will know how to do this, of course, but they will also benefit from collaborations with cultural and industry partners as AI tools are opening new avenues. Conversely, these partners are seeking our help. They come to us with AI prototypes and engage our students in beta testing because their creativity can advance the potential of the new technologies. And most importantly, our students ask the necessary, tough questions about ethics, sustainability, and resilience. We know that technologies will continue to emerge. Some will be wildly transformative, or simply utilitarian, or sometimes both. But one thing to remember is that our cultural futures are less about AI and new technologies, and much more about how we use creativity to make sense of emerging realities. And arts education is at the core of sense-making. My instinct remains to keep looking outside the walls of the university, connecting students to the roles the arts play in navigating and articulating rapid technological and social change. Because the best art, just like humor, arises from the unforeseen, from unexpected connections, unusual partnerships, technologies, and creators boldly reaching outwards. I believe our cultural futures depend on this creative play and sense-making. And yes, if we succeed, our students will continue to defy expectations. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm very excited to be here. I hope you're having a great evening. My name is Zainab, Muse, and I am the CEO and founder of Creatorland, Inc. We are a film and television production company based in Canada. We produce scripted and unscripted film and television, and our goal is to produce stories that are hopeful, impactful, and that center protagonists that aren't usually represented on screen. But before I begin, I would like us to get to know each other a little bit better. Is that all right? Okay. So if you're like me, you're probably adulting pretty hard right now. And, and what I mean by that is that you no longer want to go out on a Friday night. Instead, you want to lay on your couch and binge your next favorite TV show on a streaming platform of choice. So let's follow this scenario for a second. Say it is a Friday night, you find that TV show, and you click on episode 1. But something interesting happens. Obviously, you're hooked on the storyline, and the stakes have been perfectly set up for the protagonist, and you're invested in their journey. But before you go to the next episode, you're asked to skip outro credits. And you do, because you want to understand what the protagonist goes on in the next episode. And because episode 1 ended on a cliffhanger. And so, again, something else interesting happens before you begin episode 2. You're once again given the choice to skip intro credits. So here's my question for the room. Who here, when given the choice, skips intro and outro credits? That's a lot of great and honest answers and responses. Thank you. So, like you, before the end of last year, I never really thought about the impact of skipping intro and outro credits until Heidi Lassie, my co-producer, and I had a conversation with film and television director Don Wilkinson about erasure. This was an important topic for Heidi and I because for the past 5 years, we've been producing a documentary on erasure called Know Her Name. Our documentary explores the history of early cinema and the many women and underrepresented communities who pioneered this industry, but whose names, works, and legacies have all been erased and forgotten. Some of these women include Alice Guy Blaché, who is considered the first filmmaker, making films in the late 1800s, but whose legacy isn't widely documented in history books. And then we've also got Esther Ang, who, was making films in the 1930s. She was born and raised in San Francisco's Chinatown, but her legacy was only revived in 2006 when photos of her on her film sets were found in a dumpster. And then we've got Zora Neale Hurston, who is known for her literary work, but little is known of the ethnographic films she was making in the 1920s, that were centering African-American communities. So our conversation with Dawn was to invite her for an interview in our documentary and to chat about how contemporary filmmakers like her can prevent the process of erasure from happening to them. And it was during this conversation that Dawn shared a statement that has transformed my viewing experience as an audience. And she said, and I paraphrase, "Erasure isn't just of the past. Erasure is also happening into the future. So when you're binging a show and you're given the choice to skip intro and outro credits, you're actually given the choice to disengage with the names of the people who created the stories you're consuming. So in a way, that is a form of erasure because ownership is no longer attached to the work." I was intrigued. Like you, I see a lot of head nods because I hadn't thought about it that way, but she was right, and she had a point. So I did more research, and I discovered that it is in fact an AI mechanism that allows us to skip intro and outro credits, and it's called binge markers. So binge markers allow for seamless transition between episodes, and they enhance the user experience to keep viewers engaged longer. So in a way, erasure becomes incidental. Reports suggest that on a typical day, audiences press the skip intro button over 100 million times. And even more recently, there have been projections that the market value of AI in media and entertainment will grow to reach up to $195.7 billion over the next 10 years, driven in part by streaming services. So with all of this value and impact that AI is bringing into the media and entertainment space, we must and should dialogue about erasure. What are the consequences of separating content creators from their work? And how will, an AI-powered future influence the way we document our cultural history? So these are conversations that are important for us to have. And some people may say we can't remember everything. This is true. But the very nature of erasure that I've now discovered being on this journey is that it actually becomes about who's making the choice about what gets remembered in our collective memory and whose stories and legacies get left out. In fact, erasure has its own consequence, and it's called cultural and historical amnesia, our tendency to forget what has happened before or what came before us. And this amnesia not only impacts us, but it also impacts future generations. Because if future generations don't have reference points of what's happened before by people who look like them, then there is the tendency for them to want to reinvent the wheel. And I think that's the irony. If every new generation we're reinventing the wheel, then is society progressing or moving forward? I don't know. I would like to share some reflections I've had as a film and television producer about this topic. And for context, for a lot of people in the room, producers generally oversee the production of film and television throughout its pipeline, from concept to finished product. We hire teams, we raise funding, we oversee the creative aspects of a project, and most of all, we ensure that when the content is finished, audiences have access to it. So as producers, my reflection is that we should begin to include in our budgets proper archival processes that protect the master files of the content we produce, as well as the creators involved in the project, that we protect their identities as much as we can. And also as producers, that we engage in dialogue about how AI technologies will influence the way we archive the content we're producing. Filmmakers and content creators also have a role to play. They can begin self-archiving and self-documenting their own works to protect it into the future. And for audiences who are watching this film and television content like you and I, we should become more informed about the people who are creating this art that we consume, and as well as the cultural histories that are hiding in plain sight around us. But most importantly, we should know and reference the names of these artists. Memory is necessary. We need to know who we are if we have any hope of knowing where we are going. We have to make sure that with the emergence of new and advanced technologies and all of this creative data around us, that we are thinking of preservation in mind for ourselves, the future, and for the hundreds of people who contribute to the piece of film and television that we watch. I know many people are interested in how AI will influence the way we make, create, and present film and television. But really, my curiosity is in how AI will impact preservation, ownership, and erasure. Before I go, my question then becomes to skip or not to skip. Will you reconsider staying through the intro and outro credits? Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Bardia Sinaee. I am a poet. This is usually the point in the dream where I realize I'm not wearing pants. No, we're good. Don't get excited. A robot that writes poetry. A robot that hangs out with your friends. A robot that savors your food. A robot that receives foot massages. A ticklish robot. A robot that burps and sneezes. A robot that tries on hats. A robot that has sex and smokes cigarettes. A robot that reads books. A robot that has read every book and can talk about it. A chatbot. Unlike ChatGPT, I have not read the complete Western canon. I do not know the names of the moons of Saturn or the amount of steel used in the Golden Gate Bridge. I write from a place of profound ignorance and disorientation. Right now, for example, I'm not entirely sure who you people are or why we're all here this evening. In my experience, events like this one are a kind of ritual. We are gathered here today because an arts organization needs to convert its social capital into actual capital. I'm not here to judge. You can't pay the rent with social capital. But my point is, when I'm faced with ambiguity, I draw on my experiences. Unlike ChatGPT, I have experiences. As the only poet in tonight's lineup, I feel compelled to speculate about how artificial intelligence will impact the literary arts. To be honest, your guess is as good as mine. When microwaves were invented, perfectly sensible people assumed they would eventually be used to dry clothes. AI is already writing poetry, but it won't put poets out of work for three simple reasons. One, although it involves technique, poetry is not a technical problem. Two, we write poems because we want to, not because we lack technology to do it for us. And three, poets are already out of work. Today, most AI poetry is little more than a string of rhyming cliches. Large language models are always writing about whispering shadows and rose petals falling in a silent lament. To me, the more poetic aspect of artificial intelligence is its tendency to hallucinate, to make stuff up. In a way, AI does nothing but hallucinate. It is a prediction machine, and predictions are fundamentally unstable. Despite efforts to ensure that AI's hallucinations overlap with reality, its entire existence is a dream. As ChatGPT is quick to remind us, it can recall everything, but it can't understand anything. It's a tragic figure, doomed to write poems about rose petals, not because of what's in its heart, but because of what's in its training data. So, I am not especially interested in AI art. Nor am I worried that an artificial general intelligence could become omnipotent and diminish humanity. We have already diminished humanity. Our experiences, our work, and our relationships are increasingly mediated by algorithmic information technology. Our leaders interpret phenomena primarily through the collection and analysis of data. I know because I work in the government. And this supersedes art, religion, and all other approaches to arriving at truth. In this process, we have generated so much data that we have had to invent new machines capable of using it. Of course, the data-driven approach is not neutral. It assumes that the contradiction and chaos of human nature can be managed with enough information. Such an ideology is hostile to intangible qualities that cannot be precisely measured, defined, and represented. For hundreds of years, Canada has tried to reduce Indigenous people and their natural context into information that can be assimilated into bureaucratic frameworks, such as through censuses, Indian status, residential schools, land surveys, and treaties. Today, in the ongoing genocide in Gaza, artificial intelligence has facilitated the unprecedented bombing of Palestinian civilians. As Valentine pointed out, in the early days of the conflict, an AI program called Lavender analyzed surveillance data to generate lists of thousands of suspected militants. A separate program called Where's Daddy notified intelligence officers when a target had entered their family home, where they were bombed, often with their family members present. Technically, the Lavender system was designed to identify militants, but I would argue that it generates militants. When people are rendered as information, they become subject to the will of whoever controls information technology. The optimists in Silicon Valley have positioned AI as a solution to everything from climate change to disease to the challenge of artistic creation. If you ask me, the only problem AI solves is information glut. Unfortunately, our biggest challenges today stem from a lack of meaning, and AI does not have the capacity to mean. We know how many more doctors are needed, how many more houses are needed. We know what measures could reduce our carbon emissions and by how much. But we fail to act collectively because we don't have a shared narrative to give meaning to our actions. For me, this is where poetry comes in. I'm not interested in speculating about the impact of AI on art. I want to reinforce the role of art in a world mediated by AI. Rather than trying to deny or resolve contradiction, chaos, love, and pain, poetry summons them, celebrates them, and draws meaning from them. The poem is a process for arriving at meaning. I read poetry because it offers a mutual understanding that I have not experienced outside of intimate conversation. I write poetry because there is pleasure and value in sharing this connection with others. As we enter a period of change for what it means to be human, I encourage you to keep poetry close by in case you need a reminder. Thank you.
So I get to bat cleanup. My name's Bart Simon. I'm a cultural sociologist, and I also study and make digital games, video games, and immersive experiences. I'm the founding director of the Milieux Institute for Arts, Culture, and Technology, Concordia, and I'm a co-lead of the Machine Agency's research group, which focuses on the cultural aspects of machine learning and AI. This evening, I want to just have a brief reflection about how games, game design, and the digital arts can help us think differently about AI and where we might be headed. Have you ever noticed how our encounters with AI seem to take the form of a test? I mean, you sit down with a large language model like ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, and your first impulse is to test it. Is it really as good as they say? Is it intelligent? Is it fast? Is it accurate? And often, what we really mean when we do this is, can it do the job I need it to do the same or better or faster than me? This testing is important, not just in terms of getting a sense of what AI can do, but also because there are billions of dollars riding on the outcomes of these tests. AI culture is dominated by promises and tests of promises. And to be honest, it's actually really hard to find anyone who actually uses the technology instead of just tests it. Now, sometimes it's true, when you give ChatGPT a test, it does well, it passes, which means it did what you wanted it to do. It met your expectations. Occasionally, it does better than this, and you're surprised. Wow, you say, this thing is really smart, or wow, that's kind of creative. More often, though, the test is a failure. ChatGPT gives a response that has nothing to do with what you wanted, makes no sense, or is downright wrong. This test mode is important, of course. AI companies should have to prove their worth, but it's an extremely limited way to interact with the technology. What if we relaxed our skepticism a bit and approached AI less as a shiny tech demo that could solve all our problems, and more as a technology with limitations and foibles? What if we interacted with AI as it actually works rather than how we want it to work? To do this, we have to get out of test mode. But this is harder than you think. Over the years, I often do an exercise in my class where I invite students to shout out prompts to a chatbot to talk about something to do with the course. We do this with the older, clunky, non-AI chatbots. Does anybody remember Eliza here? Or if you don't remember Eliza, Alexa? And we also do this with the so-called foundational models like ChatGPT. It doesn't matter which, because almost always within 5 minutes, the students are trying to give prompts that will break the AI. It's the most fun when the chatbot makes no sense or gives an obvious wrong answer. Everyone laughs at the chatbot's expense. If the chatbot was human, we would consider this to be quite cruel. I wondered about this laughter. Could we devise an interaction where instead of laughing at the AI, we laughed with it? And what would that mean? To explore this, 3 students in our research group, Luciano Frizera, Julia Salas, and Julia Zamboni, made a game called Picked.io, which you can actually try. I want you to try this after tonight. Anytime, if you go to the website gamepicked.io.com, you can play our game. Our game modifies a fantastic little AI project by Google Creative Lab called Quick Draw. In the Google game, you are prompted to make a quick doodle on a screen in response to a text prompt. Draw a sea turtle in under 20 seconds, for instance. The AI model, which is trained on all the previous players' sketch data, tries to guess what you draw. It's Pictionary. Our first move was to simply add a machine voice to Google's game. The voice verbalizes the guesses of the AI as opposed to just being text, but also tells the player to hurry up with their drawing and expresses embarrassment and dismay when it gets it wrong, as well as celebrates when it gets it right. It even laughs at itself. It's an old trick that even ChatGPT uses to generate empathy from a user by apologizing for its errors. Though, look, if you've ever messed with ChatGPT, then you know its apologies don't seem particularly sincere. Our goal is to try to convey the sense that the AI is playing too. In actual human Pictionary, the fun of the game comes with the laughter around making awkward drawings and bad guesses. As it turns out, an AI that can accurately guess the drawing after 2 sketch lines over and over again is certainly impressive, but also pretty boring. To expand on this, we designed a slightly different version of the game for 2 human players and the AI. In this game, one player is told what object to draw and proceeds to draw that object with their finger on a wall or on the back of the other player. That player must then draw the object that they feel on their back, or that they think they see on the wall, on the screen, and the Google AI must guess what it is. Here we combine Pictionary with the classic game of broken telephone. The AI interprets a drawing that is interpreted by another human. Miscommunication is what makes this game fun. And in this case, the AI can guess right but still be wrong because it depends on another player's interpretation of the first player's drawing. Our version of the game puts the human and the AI player in the same boat. In short, the players and the AI are in it together. They are collectively making the game interesting, challenging, and fun. What would be a failure in test mode has become a source of constructive interaction in game mode. Now, the moral of the story is not to be kinder to AI, but rather to do as digital artists working with new technologies have always done, to take the time and effort to appreciate and explore the limits of the technology and work with what AI can do rather than what we are promised it can do. A culture in test mode is feeding an AI bubble with promises that cannot be kept, while a culture in game mode finds actually interesting and productive uses for the technology as it is, rather than as what we are told it should be. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our talkers. To recap, Valentine Goddard taking a look at gender in AI, and I know I will put on that intersectional lens when we put in our prompts to really look at what we are getting back and where we're at in what's being created. Jean-François Bélisle asked us, will AI kill visual arts? I think a lot of us have been wondering that question at large. My takeaway from your talk is that it's creating new art, new ideas, new questions, and perhaps new artists and experiences. Guler, I love that you said off the top, I welcome feedback, because that's a theme that AI is collecting feedback, but we're having discussions and trying to, feedback is important to this work, whether it's humans, AI, or humans working with AI. And you reminded us that people are needed to make and use these tools. Annie Gérin, the science of humor is fascinating. I have to say, I've never thought of it. And your line, humor is about problem solving, that really, really highlights the science and also the art behind humor, AI, humans, how we work. But you encouraged us as well as students to extend ourselves into new possibilities, the unexpected. Zainab, Muse, not only do I think you persuaded this audience to keep on the intro and the extra credits, but we're going to be looking for your name, so I'm going to say it again, Zainab Muse. Bardia, Sinaee, protect the poets. Protect the poets. And I think you need to be at Annie's humor conference because you had the audience laughing. And Bart Simon, you're right. A lot of us do try to test AI, and I will admit, I was playing around with image creation, and I thought, okay, let's put in Jennifer Hollett hosting the Walrus Talks, AI and art. And I had a beard in the image, like a full bushy beard. And I had a good laugh in you. I did feel superior. Oh, look, they can't draw me. But tapping into play and games and experimentation, I think, is a different way to look at AI rather than a gotcha or not so bad. A round of applause again for our Walrus Talkers this evening. At this point, I invite our talkers to get up and head to the reception so they can catch their breath and grab a drink. And while they do that, I'm going to tell the rest of our audience here and at home a bit more about what's going on with the Walrus. If you enjoyed tonight's event, we have more coming up. On Wednesday, June 5th, join us here at the National Gallery or online for the Walrus Talks Canada's Creative Power. This event is going to bring together 7 leaders of Canada's key national cultural institutions to explore why culture matters and the impact of our creative communities and work on the global stage. I encourage you to sign up for our newsletter when you visit the table outside this room. We'll also follow up with an email where you can opt in. That is the best way to stay in touch with the Walrus. You can also subscribe to the Walrus. We have a special offer for those of you who are with us in person. For you, just a full year subscription to the Walrus. That's 8 issues delivered right to your door for only $25. Visit the Walrus table on your way out, and the team will set you up. The Walrus is home to Canada's community-supported conversation. That means our journalism and our events are made possible by people like you. Unlike other journalism organizations, the Walrus is a unique beast. We're a registered charity with an educational mandate. And our independent fact-check journalism is powered by donations from our community of supporters so that we can give everyone the access they deserve to reporting and conversations that matter. So if you'd like to ensure that we can continue this work, consider making a donation. You can do so online at thewalrus.ca/support or on your way out at the table in the lobby. All gifts of $20 or more receive a charitable tax receipt. Thanks again to everyone at Concordia University who make these talks possible. A big thank you to our annual sponsors, Air Canada, Inspire, RBC Emerging Artists, Rogers, and Via Rail Canada. Thank you all for attending here in person and online and being a part of the Walrus community. I look forward to continuing the conversation, experimenting on AI, and seeing where it takes us ahead. Have a great evening, everyone.